The Inflation Reduction Act, I mentioned earlier that we had this report on inflation that showed it, maybe cooling a little bit. The markets like that. We have this Inflation Reduction Act. Is there anything in there? I know it had zero Republican support for a number of reasons. Anything in there, though, that will bring some much-needed relief?
First of all, inflation, the gross inflation number went down 8.5%. Okay, but you can't look just at month to month. If you look at the price of food, it's increased, I believe, by 10.5% from a year ago. That's the highest increase since 1979. Electricity prices, all these electric cars people want to see, electricity prices went up 14-something% in the last year. So you have to not just look at the inflation number, which went up. It's still an 8.5%. That's a pretty significant increase. But there's no good news embedded in there. I guess the good news is it wasn't 9.5%, but it could have been worse, but it's not good. That said, there's nothing in this bill. This bill is basically a climate bill. What it basically does is it takes $380 billion and uses it for tax credits so that affluent people can buy electric cars at some point in the next 10 years, because some of these cars are not ready to be made. We don't have enough charging stations, and solar panels. If you drive a gas-powered car, which is what most Americans are going to drive for the foreseeable future, there's nothing in it for you except potentially higher prices, because they've now put a tax on petroleum that's imported. They've now put a tax on natural gas, so your electricity bill can go up as well. And they've hired the most outrageous thing of all. What is it, 87,000 IRS agents? We don't have 87,000 billionaires. So what are 87,000 IRS agents going to do? They're going to go after people who can't afford lawyers and accountants to defend themselves, and they're going to harass people. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to go after 87,000 people. The British Army has 81,000 soldiers. And they've hired more than that just in new agents for the IRS.
I don't think it was 5 minutes after you voted no on this, though, that I got an email from Florida Democrats saying, Marco Rubio has just voted against allowing Medicare to negotiate prices, capping at $2,000 the amount that seniors can pay out of pocket. Were there some wins in here from Democrats and some good things that will help people that maybe you would have been for had they been standalone?
Well, I can't go through every single provision of the bill and say everything in it was bad, but you talk about the pharmaceutical thing. I would love to see lower drug prices. The problem is no one buys their money from a pharmaceutical company. You buy it from a retail pharmacy. And between the pharmacy and between the pharmaceutical are these benefit managers who go completely untouched in regards to how much they're charging you. So under President Trump, there were rebates that were put in place so that when the end user went to the pharmacy or online pharmacy, if it's through the insurance company, and bought their pharmaceuticals, the rebate applied. The Biden administration, because it's Trump, wiped out the rebates. And now this is their answer to it. Well, here's the problem. It sounds like a great idea about negotiating. The problem is it's not really negotiating. You're a massive buyer. So when you're the federal government, there's no negotiation. You're telling them what you're willing to pay. And what some pharmaceutical companies would do, and I'm not necessarily always a big fan of every pharmaceutical company, but what they're going to do now is they're going to say, well, we'll just invest less in new medicines and in new treatments. And the rarer the disease, the less they're going to invest in it. That could be, that's probably one of the likely side products of this. But if that's what they wanted this to be about, then we should have had a bill that had to do with pharmaceutical prices. We should have had a bill that reinstated the rebates, and maybe some middle ground could have been found there. But they put in $380 billion for climate on things that will not benefit working people at all. They added all these new taxes. They hired 87,000 new agents, and they fought off every amendment that tried to improve the bill. So if they think that they're not helping the country, they're certainly not helping working people. This is the most tone-deaf bill I've ever heard, and there's a lot of angry people out there that woke up on Monday to the news that there are going to be 87,000 new IRS agents now ready to harass them and their small business. As far as the legislative wins for Biden, I mean, Biden didn't do anything on these things. The CHIPS Act, which didn't have enough security, so now China's going to be able to steal all the stuff that we're investing money in, was a legislative proposal worked on by a Republican in Indiana and Chuck Schumer that's been going on for 2 years. They started working on it before Biden was even elected. The burn pits legislation, the centerpiece of that bill is a bill that I filed with Senator Gillibrand. I didn't ask Joe Biden about it. We filed it before he was even president. We've been working on it. And this latest thing, if he wants to take credit for this climate, scam, and 87,000 IRS agents, he deserves all the credit for pushing that. He should go out and campaign, and I hope he comes to Florida and campaigns on the fact that he's going to hire 87,000 IRS agents to hassle and harass small businesses and working people. He wants credit for that. I'll give it to him.